And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited today to welcome Brenna Ehrlich here to give us the inside scoop on her brand new red hot book, Killing Time. Brenna, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about Killing Time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. Killing Time is my new YA thriller. It came out last Tuesday. It seems like it's been out forever now, but yeah, it's a story about a true crime obsessed teenager who has a true crime podcast, and her teacher is murdered, and she decides to use her podcast to try to figure out what happened to avenge her death. And it's about the ethics of true crime and when that kind of thing becomes entertainment.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Which is one of many reasons why I'm so excited to talk to you about this book, because it hooked me from the moment that I cracked the cover. And it said, with two interwoven mysteries, Killing Time is a deathly warning to a generation of murderinos. So I'm a murderino, and I know we have so many murderinos in the audience. I'm a true crime addict. I listen to all the podcasts, I watch all the shows. And your book raises a lot of important questions, which I'm really excited to get to. So I just want to welcome everybody. So we're going to get into all the dirty details in just a moment. I just want to welcome everyone who is watching with us on Facebook, on YouTube. We are streaming live to 6 locations. So wherever you're watching from, you're in the right place. This is the right time. If you've been here before, you know the drill. Get the questions going in the comments. This is your chance to talk to this incredible journalist and YA author. Darla Hatan, welcome to the conversation. She says, hello from Portland, Oregon. Welcome, Darla. Always a pleasure to have you. Christina Powers, good to have you in the audience. She says the audiobook is amazing. Christina is an amazing bookstagrammer. She is at A Politically Read Girl. Christina loves audiobooks. And I know she says she's really enjoying it. It's amazing. Christina, tell us what you love. She always has questions about the voice. So let's start with the voice. Let's start with the scoop on the audiobook. Do you love the voice? Did you get input into the voice? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I didn't get input actually, but when I was told that we were getting an audiobook, I was really excited because it's something I just didn't even think of, and just something weird about having someone sit and read your book out loud for 10 hours or however long it is. And the audiobook's narrator, I think it's Christina Knight Keating. I think that's right, or Keating. It's Knight Keating, right? Not Keating Knight. But she was amazing. I started listening to it, and it was a little weird for me to listen to my own audiobook. It's kind of like listening to yourself sing or something. But it was cool to hear it from somebody else's voice, and from their own point of view, and with all the pauses and everything. So yeah, it's awesome to have an audiobook. It's just another cool thing that I guess you get to do with books.
Yay. So when you were writing Natalie, did you hear a very specific voice in your head? Did you hear how Natalie might sound? And then did that voice align with it? Were you like, that's Natalie? Or you were like, ooh, this is a new Natalie. What was that like for you?
I mean, Natalie's obviously a teenager. So
yeah.
The woman who read it is not. But Natalie, it's a third person book. So it definitely captured the third person voice that I was hearing. And let me look this up because I don't want to get her name wrong. That would be terrible.
And Christina is saying that she does an amazing job with your work. Yes. So I guess we weren't really looking so much for Natalie's voice itself, because as you said, it is a third person, but someone who could narrate the story from Natalie, from the other points of view, in a way that felt authentic to the story and to those characters that you have invented. So Christina says she thinks it's amazing. That's so great to know. So Brenna, this book is earning amazing praise. Congratulations on all of this. Courtney Summers raving. She is the New York Times bestselling author of Sadie and the Project, raving Killing Time has all the crackle and edge of your favorite episode of Veronica Mars, a gritty, whip smart, and exciting mystery that isn't afraid to ask tough questions. Let's talk about, when you set out to write this book, what tough questions were you hoping to ask? What did did you really want to get into there about? Was it the ethics of making someone's murder entertainment? I mean, what did you want to get into? Thanks for all the hearts, you guys.
Well, first, I just want to say it was Laura Knight Keating. I'm sorry, since we were talking to Christina, my brain shorted out a little bit. In terms of ethics and morals, it's hard because you don't want to like start out writing moralizing, but I've been writing about true crime basically since I was in graduate school. I went to school for journalism, and I actually wanted to work on the police beat. And it was really hard. You kind of do real stories when you're in journalism school. So I was writing about gangs. I was writing about, criminal courts, and it was really hard. And it kind of crystallized in my mind as something that wasn't going to be like my main job, because I didn't think it could be something I could do every day. Showing up at people's doorsteps when someone has died, talking to people who are grieving seconds after, they've found out that someone's passed away. But as I started, working more in journalism, I work at Rolling Stone. I started covering true crime for Rolling Stone. I started writing about, murder cases, cold cases, things like that. And it's a really difficult balance to tell a story that's important to tell without just being super salacious, or taking the pain of somebody and their families and the victims and making that entertainment. So through my job, that kind of was important to me when I was working on this book. And I do listen to a lot of podcasts like everyone else. And some podcasts are better than others at, kind of handling things properly or with an eye towards care. And I guess like Mrs. Halsey says it at one point, the teacher, that if you really care about the story that you're writing, if you like really, try to care about the characters, or not the characters, the people, then it comes through, that you're about more than just like the blood and the death and the things that happen. So I know it can come off, like a little bit like a journalism handbook at certain times, but that's it's important to me. Yeah, it's just important to me to remember that everyone's a real person.
Yes, everyone is a real person, and I think you handled this with such care. Another thing that you addressed that I really liked is you set this in, Connecticut, in a place where there are the townies, and then there's the summer people, and sort of
Mhm.
the tension or the differences between what they have and what they can afford, and who has, various sort of, status symbols, like, how they dress and what they have, and Natalie, as someone who's a townie who works, in a cafe, of course, my heart goes to her,
Mhm.
because I'm more like that. And I loved how you sort of covered that, and that, of people coming in, vacationing there, and the people who live there full time, not having what those people do. That sort of tension. What drew you to that?
Well, Ferry is actually based on my hometown of Mystic, Connecticut, which is a tourist town. There's a seaport, like in Ferry. There's an aquarium. There's all these things that like very touristy. People come in for the weekend. They walk around. They like look at everything, and then they leave. And to me, growing up in that kind of town was its own experience, because there's the people who live there, and there's the people who grew up there, and the people who work at the stores that, and then there's just these like summer people, um, clogging up the sidewalks, or causing traffic. Yeah, so and it is kind of a town where there's like disparity of wealth. Connecticut's kind of like that in general. You think of it as being this really wealthy state, and there's definitely enclaves of wealth, but then there's also, it's you go to high school with all different kinds of people. It's not just kind of the rich kids or the poor kids or the middle class kids. So yeah, I mean, I've written some places that have taken place in Mystic before, or some books, and that's kind of, you kind of start out writing about where you're from, I think.
So I noticed in your bio that you were from Connecticut. So I was wondering which real city it was based on. And crazily, my one of my dearest friends for the past 25 years, Mary Beth, who's a teacher, was the director of education at the Mystic Aquarium. And
Oh wow.
so I brought her in. And so I've been to Mystic many times to visit her. And so she pioneered all of the education about aquatics, about fish, about whales, about the ecosystems of the ocean to kids to get them more involved. And so, now that I know it's based on Mystic, I'm going to have to go back and reread it and replace the word ferry or fairy with Mystic.
Well, they do have the sea lion show still that I mentioned in the books that you can go to. I think it's still the same sea lions. You'll have to ask your friend, but they seemed very familiar last time I was there.
You were like, "Hey, Steve." Oh my goodness. So another amazing blurb that you got from Kara Thomas, author of the Cheerleader, said that Killing Time is deathly smart, twisty, and at times wickedly funny. Now, Brenna, I don't know about you. I find funny hard to write because it's hard to be funny on a page and to have someone read that and come through and make them laugh. What do you think the secret to being funny is?
Oh, I don't know. My friend and I, actually, Andy Bartz, who's another thriller writer.
Oh yeah, I had Andy on in September. She's fabulous.
Yeah, she's great. So we wrote this book, Stuff Hipsters Hate, probably 10 years ago. That was from the blog to book genre. That was a comedy, like kind of satirical book. And I don't know about you, but when I feel myself getting too serious, I make jokes. So I think it's maybe more me trying not to show too many emotions that leads to being funny. And yeah, Natalie and Katie and the characters in the book joke around. And I try to, it's a delicate balance because you don't want them to be joking around too much about something serious, but they're also kids and like they have feelings and they have emotions, and they'll try to hide those feelings and emotions sometimes by just kind of making fun of things or pointing out something absurd. So I think it's just trying to, like, I don't know. I'm never like trying to be funny. It's more just kind of like, what could this person be saying to kind of dissuade the conversation to something lighter?
Ooh, interesting. So as a diversion, as a get out of that tense moment.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I love that. Christina's saying, OMG, I adore Andy. She's amazing. Yes, yes. So we first met Andy with The Herd, and then most recently when she was a book club pick with We Were Never Here. And Andy's not only fabulous on Instagram, but she has Mona, the rescue kitty, who's also fabulous on Instagram. And Andy and I actually trade snoring cat and dog videos. So Mona snores and Pelu, my little cat-sized dog, snores. So I will sometimes send her videos of obscenely loud snoring Pelu, and she responds with snoring Mona because there's nothing cuter than a snoring cat or dog.
Oh my goodness. My cats snore too. It's the best.
It's so I'm like, this is my meditation, just watching her and listening to her snoring. I think this is the most meditative thing I could possibly do. Oh my gosh. So Brenna, another of my favorite reviews, and this one I want to get into is by I have them all here, but what I really loved about this one was that they talk about the process. So Jeff Zentner, Morris Award-winning author of The Serpent King and In the Light, says, in Killing Time, Brenna Ehrlich has crafted an utterly compelling, pulse-pounding spider web of a thriller. And like a spider web, once it grabs you, it won't let go. So what is so great about that is that it really, well, first of all, it really captures it, but let's talk about what I think every author, regardless of genre, needs to do, and that is keep the pulse pounding. Oh, hold on, darling, we got to know about the cats. We're going to get to the pulse pounding, but first we got to know about the cats. Tell us about your cats, Brenna.
Sure. I'm surprised that one of them is not bothering me right now because she doesn't like it when I'm in my office, the door closed. And she disrupted my book event last week, but she made a cute little cameo. Her name is Hazel, and she's a Russian blue tabby, and she's very fat. And then we have a cat named Nimbus, who is a long-haired Duluth calico, who is like a tiny monster, but also very sweet. And she had an at-home vet visit last week because we cannot get her to the vet, and she only made one of the vets bleed. So we're calling that progress for now.
Was
So
it
Nimby,
was it
Nimby
was
is
it a
busy.
bite or was it a scratch? Did you have to get a Band-Aid? Did it need stitches?
It was a scratch situation. I don't think it needed to be amputated, but she did not want to get a shot and made that known.
Yes. So I also do at-home visits for Pelu because she can't go to the vet either. And when she sees that my vet, who's actually one of my yoga students, coming, she runs under the couch to the point where I can't reach her from either side. So she's just out of reach of my fingertips, and that's where she hides. Brenna, how do they help you write? Do they distract you? Do they calm you? How do your cats play a role in your writing?
They calm me down. Like I don't even really use my office, which is sad because you can see I like have everything set up, and I just sit on the couch and write on my laptop with like a pile of pillows. So they're usually just like within reach at all times, except for when they decide to rub their faces on my laptop and kind of like, you know, break up the flow a little bit there. But they're calming presences, I would say.
Yay. Sylvia is saying hi from Oklahoma. Sylvia, welcome to the conversation.
Wow.
So great to have you. I feel like I should, if I had a good voice, I would burst into a rousing rendition of Oklahoma, but I do not, so I'll spare us from that. Christina says, you took the quote out of my mind. We are a major Jeff Zentner fan household. I was going to ask you who inspires your writing. So, okay, let's start there. Who inspires your writing, Brenna?
Well, I love Jeff. Serpent King is probably one of my favorite YA books. And I told him this in my email to him when I asked him to blurb Killing Time. I was like, I appreciate how you always write with so much love. Like, he writes with love for all of his characters, and you can feel that he's somebody who has like people in his life that he would just like die for. And I think that that's a hard thing to remember sometimes, especially when you're writing a thriller, is that you can't just like, the thrills are important, but like you have to remember love um, when you're writing characters because that makes the characters kind of these enduring people. Um, so Jeff is obviously inspiring, and Courtney, who you mentioned, who again writes like these characters that you're devastated when something bad happens to them, and something bad always happens to them. One of my favorite YA writers is Robert Cormier. He wrote Chocolate War and The Bumblebee Flies Anyway, and a whole bunch of other books because he just wrote like the darkest YA books in the 80s when I don't think YA was even a genre, but he just wasn't afraid to kind of have bad things happen to kids, which sounds terrible, but that's what kids deal with. Everything is not, every childhood is not amazing, and
Mm.
but the way he handled it and the stories he told were just so like complicated, where there weren't always heroes or villains that were clear. They were, people who did bad things and did good things and did things in between. And that's just really important to me.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And I love that when you wrote to Jeff and asked him to blurb your book or consider blurbing, that you told him that you wrote that what you admired about his book was his writing was that he always writes with love, which
Mhm.
goes back to what you were saying about finding the balance as both a journalist and a writer to write about true crime in a way that does not sensationalize what is ultimately a tragedy and a heartbreaking loss of life. And you said that writing about those characters with care and concern and love and that holding that intention even as you write about something painful or hard is your goal. And this is also what you admire about Jeff. That's really
Yeah.
cool because Jeff did give you a blurb. Let's pop that up. So he said, in Killing Time, Brenna Ehrlich has crafted an utterly compelling, pulse pounding spider web of a thriller. And like a spider web, once it grabs you, it won't let you go. So no matter what kind of genre you're writing, in order to engage the reader, you have to suck them in that spider web way and keep the pulses pounding. Brenna, what have you found along the journey that is the secret to that?
Oh, lots and lots of drafts.
How many drafts?
I don't even know. The first draft of Killing Time, I put this on Twitter last week. I passed it to my agent 4 years ago, and it was only 168 pages. I was like, it's a book. And it had like a very simple mystery. And even when it got acquired, the mystery, it was still like twisty, but it wasn't even as twisty as it became when I started working with my editor, Rebecca Cuss. Because I'm just a very linear writer. I have to like write in order, and then I kind of have to like start over and go back again, which is not like the most time, you know, the best use of time, but it's just the way that my brain works. But I think it's just kind of a balancing act between different plot lines and different aspects of the book. So like if I want to focus on like the Helen plot line on this edit through, then I kind of ignore the Natalie plot line, and then I'll go through and focus on the Natalie plot line, but it all kind of coalesces into one plot. But for me, it's just kind of like I'm going through and I'm focusing on this story or this thread. This time I go through it, and then next time I'm going through this thread. But yeah, I don't. It's hard to give anyone advice on it's just the way your brain works in the end.
Mm. So when you turned the book in, it was 160 pages. You thought it was done. The book then ended up at 331. I just quickly looked to see. So it grew. It doubled. And what's that?
As it should, because 168 pages is not really a book, but
A novella.
Novella, yeah.
And you, while doing that, and I don't want to give anything away, but you interwove two mysteries. So how did you, as a linear writer, how did you keep that all straight in your brain? I'm assuming you're a plotter and your house looks something like A Beautiful Mind. I mean, are there posters everywhere?
I am not a plotter.
How do you keep it straight in your mind, linear writer you?
I don't know. I just actually tried to make an outline for the first time for something else I was pitching, and it was so hard for me because I like when I'm writing stuff. This is just like talking about like making clouds. I will say to myself, I'm going to write a scene, and at the beginning, this will have happened, and then by the end, this will happen. And then it's like, how do I get there? And the how do I get there is kind of like, it sounds like weird, but like the characters kind of tell you how they get there. So when I start writing a book, it's usually, especially with a thriller, it's like, what's the mystery? Who are the characters? Who did it? And then it's how do we get to figuring out who did it? So yeah, I've never been like the kind of person who has like note cards. Like I have a notebook somewhere that has like a little timeline on it. It's scribbled. I wish I were like a note card person. I feel like my life would be easier, but.
So I let people submit questions in advance in the Facebook group, Mystery and Thriller Mavens. And so that is actually the perfect lead into one of our questions, which is, when you write, do you hear the characters' voices as some authors say you do, say that they do, or do you only hear them after you've written it? So I think they're saying, like, when you're writing it, do you hear those voices and they're guiding you, or only later do you, I think I'm interpreting that right.
Yeah. I feel like I hear their voices when I'm writing, because for me, it's also like, I'm not the kind of person who sits down and is like, I'm going to write 1,000 words today. It's more, well, this thing has to happen in the next part of the book. How's it going to happen? And then I kind of go about my life. And usually when like I'm on a walk or in a shower, I'm like, oh, this is what's going to happen. And then I sit down and I write it. And yeah, it's never word count. It's more like I have to write this scene today. And usually when I write this scene today, I'll edit the scene from the day before so that I kind of have like the momentum going into the new scene. Um, but yeah, I think the characters are usually kind of there as I'm writing, and then they can change and they can make different decisions than I thought they were going to make. But it's just kind of it's like getting the story going in your head and then just kind of letting it go.
Ooh, I like that. Christina's saying she remembers the chocolate war when she was a kid and she bought her daughter all of Jeff's books for Christmas. What a great
Oh yeah,
Christmas gift, Christina. I've actually never read Jeff, so I'm going to have to add him to my TBR immediately.
he's awesome.
Um,
He's such a beautiful writer.
Yay. And I love that you said that part about how he writes with love. So as soon as you said that, I was intrigued. Oh my goodness. Sylvia saying she's from Omaha, Nebraska, not Oklahoma. We don't have a song, so you're safe. Okay, good. We're all safe, Sylvia. I will spare you all the heart of hearing me sing. Although maybe we should make up a song for Nebraska. Oh my gosh. Okay, we have just a few minutes left, everybody. So get your last questions in for Brenna. I want to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. Meanwhile, I want to get over to this other blurb, this one coming from Jessica Goodman, New York Times bestselling author of The Counselors, They'll Never Catch Us, and They Wish They Were Us. She says the Killing Time is expertly plotted and brimming with suspense. Killing Time is more than just a mystery. It's a thoughtful novel about true crime stories and how we tell them. Brilliant, fun, and utterly compelling. So I love that because again, she's talking about what you're talking about how not to glorify or sensationalize what ultimately starts with the fact of a body. So I thought that was such a beautiful blurb. I'm going to pop it up here just briefly because it'll cover our faces. But this was such a fabulous blurb. When I read that, I just really resonated with it. Let's go a little bit more deeply. So if you don't plot, how do you know where to put in the suspenseful moments? Is it only when you go back in the revisions?
It's kind of just, I feel like I'm giving no concrete answers. It's kind of just like a feeling.
You're
Like,
being serious, but that's on brand. It's a mystery show.
I feel like it's also kind of like if you read a lot of books and you watch a lot of movies, you kind of get the rhythm in your head of how a story goes. So it's, well, okay, well, like a really suspenseful thing just happened. Now the characters need to like eat something or like have some fun. Um, and I've looked at like the kill the cat um, method, which I'm sure people have heard of, which is like for screenwriting, where it's just kind of like you introduce the characters, and then you introduce the problem, and then like they accomplish something, but then something bad happens, and then they need to be pulled out of that bad thing, and then like there's run around and have fun time. So for me, it's more like, well, okay, nothing has happened with the mystery in a while, so we got to get something in with the mystery. Um, and yeah, with my editor, it was kind of like, well, Natalie needs to do something like to put herself at risk because she's being too safe. And I always think it's funny when people read a thriller and they're like, well, she didn't have to do all those things like that got her in trouble. Like that's the book. Otherwise, you're just reading about a kid like making good decisions. So, or anybody making good decisions. People in thrillers kind of have to make bad decisions because, you know, you have to put yourself in kind of a dangerous position. But you have to kind of like make it happen as though they thought of that themselves instead of just being like, well, my character has to do something stupid now. So the plot can move forward.
Oh my God, Brenna, actually, that's a really good point because sometimes when I'll admit that when I'm watching a movie or reading a book, I'm like, don't go down into the basement when you just heard a terrifying sound of a door opening and somebody walking around, like run out of the house, run out of the house. But you're totally right. If they ran out of the house and didn't go down the basement, there'd be no story to tell.
Yeah, and they don't know it's a horror movie. Like they're just at home. So
That's a good point. Only we know it's a horror movie. I can't believe I never thought of that. This is a big aha moment for me because I'm always like, why? Why are you doing that? Oh my gosh. Okay, good. All right, everybody. I want to thank you. Welcome, Fiorello. Welcome, Mona. Welcome, Carol. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let us know. Welcome, Mindy, Lisa, Anita. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Let us know if you have any questions. Shambo, excuse me, Dana, Sally, Destiny, Joe, and Jane, thank you so much for joining us. Let us know if you have any questions for Brenna. We have just a few minutes left. I think I can get in at least one, maybe two more questions. I also want to share this review from Kirkus because I think it was the New York Times that called Kirkus reliably curmudgeonly. And so, the praise from Kirkus don't come cheap. They raved. They said the novel thoughtfully examines the sometimes exploitative, often tittillating nature of the true crime phenomenon, while also in a fine balancing act paying homage to it. A layered tale of true crime, family ties, and unveiled secrets. I think that is my favorite review of all. Brenna, do you have a favorite review of all? Were you like, at last I am seen?
I loved all of them. The Kirkus one was just kind of, I don't know. I felt like they got it, and I was expecting them to say something they didn't like, and they didn't. So that was that was nice. Yeah, I feel like I'm just happy people are reading it. When I see that people are reading it, I'm just like, oh God, why? Which I probably should have more confidence, but yeah, I'm just happy. People are picking it up.
Well, the book has been out for 6 days, y'all. It is out now. Grab your copy here. I'm putting the link in the comments so you can support our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore, Murder by the Book. So grab your copy here. I have to say, I am about 2/3 of the way through this book, and I love it. I love this book. It is tender. It is heartfelt. It is, as a murderino, I love it. Natalie's got a secret true crime podcast that she's hiding from her mom. Hashtag relatable. So I'm really, really enjoying this book, and I hope you all will too. So grab your copy here. Here is the link. And what made you? One more question. What made you want to write YA, Brenna, instead of a adult book?
I don't know actually. I wrote an adult book, the first book I wrote probably 10 years ago. And I remember the feedback, it didn't come out, it didn't sell. But the feedback was like the people talk too much like kids, even though like they were 27. And I was like, well, you haven't met 27-year-olds in Brooklyn. But I was like, okay, well then the next book I write, I'm gonna write about teenagers because I feel like this is more comfortable. And teenagers, they have their whole lives in front of them and they don't have to deal with work. And there's a lot of things you don't have to like put into a story with teenagers. And I also just love how optimistic and open they are. Especially in the thriller genre, you kind of like people are very jaded, either romantically or, by life. And just like I like writing about people who are not kind of over it. I guess that's it. It's just, you know, it's it's good to like always have the outlook of a teenager that you can do anything at any time, and that like you yourself like moved on from a job that you previously had to something else. And I think a lot of us get stuck in who we are and what we do and the money that we make and
Yeah.
this and that. But like we're young, like even somebody in their 60s is young. There's whole careers that you can have. You can have multiple careers in your life. So yeah, just I guess having an outlook of a teenager is probably the most helpful thing that you could do.
Yay. Sylvia would like to know, does Brenna have a favorite YA book that she's read? Great question.
Ooh, that's hard. A lot of favorite YA books. Again, I love Robert Cormier. I love Tenderness. I love Francesca Leah Block, Weetzie Bat. Um, I love Sadie, Courtney's book, and The Serpent King. Um, it's always going to change. But one of my favorite books of all time, which I guess you could consider YA, is Catcher in the Rye. just because what I love about that book is Holden Caulfield is just like talking like the world is ending. And when you're a kid, you read that and you're like, yes, the world is ending when something bad happens to me. And then you read that as an adult, you're like, you are 17, you're going to be okay.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Brenna, thank you for the great answer. And Sylvia, thank you for the great question. We had one other question submitted in advance. This one from Amanda. She said, Brenna, I see that you are a journalist and an editor. How has that impacted your writing of this book?
So again, I cover a lot of true crime and news. I'm currently the senior news editor at Rolling Stone. I'm switching over to research editor when they hire my replacement. Um, but there's just like there's no end to ideas when this is your job. Um, like I have so many ideas from other books for other books based on like real life cases that I've written about. And also I think when you have to write like daily news and get stuff up really fast, you get a lot less like connected to your writing where you know like
Ooh.
I don't want somebody to like edit your deathless prose, but I'm pretty like, oh, okay, you don't think that works, then like let's kill it. So I think yeah, having to write fast and on your feet is a good way to stop yourself from like taking forever to finish a book.
Ooh. So how fast do you have to write in your news job?
It depends. I mean, I mostly just edit during the day, and then I'll write features. But I'm working on a story that's for the summer issue, and I have to finish that by the end of May. It's lots of intense reporting. I have to like take a trip to Ohio and do all this reporting for the story. But
Ooh.
you know, like I can sit and like once I have all my reporting, get it done in like 5 hours. Just kind of
Wow. And how many words are your stories usually?
for features like that, they're like 3,000 probably.
Okay. Wow,
So
that's really fast. And
I'm
this
pretty
book,
fast at this point.
yeah, you're fast. So then this book at 334 pages. Sorry, not 331. I just double checked. 334, not counting the acknowledgments, which are 2 pages. This one took you, the whole soup to nuts process took you 4 years.
Yeah, I mean that's in between like submissions,
Yeah.
where you're kind of just waiting. But yeah, it would take with you know the actual writing, the editing, the contracts, all that stuff was 4 years.
That makes sense. Lecha, welcome to the conversation. She's saying she's seconding Catcher in the Rye is such a good book.
It is great.
Yay. Wonderful. Sorry, I missed this one from Nancy. What are you working on next? Book-wise.
Book-wise, I can't say that yet. Working on a new idea that is based on some reporting that I've done for Rolling Stone. So hopefully they'll use at some point.
Excellent. Oh, okay. On that note, Lecha would like to know what inspired you to write Killing Time.
Again, I wanted to write a true crime story, and actually, there was a teacher in my hometown who died when I was in high school under mysterious circumstances. That's about as much in common as like the two storylines have, but it's been something that's bothered me my entire life. I was not as close to her as Natalie is, but I think, and this is kind of the point too with Killing Time, is I think that there's usually like something like this that happens in everyone's town. Like everyone has a story about someone they know that something happened to them. Yeah, and it's something that probably got me into writing about true crime in the first place. Just that, everybody has a story like this, and they're all important. All of them are people, and none of them deserve for what happened to them. So that's kind of what inspired me.
Lecha, thank you for the great question. And Brenna, thank you for the great answer. Sylvia saying Rolling Stone is a dream job of hers. She began reading it when it was a folded newsprint periodical. Savor that role. And actually, one of my favorite true crime podcasts is by your fellow Rolling Stone person, To Live and Die in LA. I love that podcast. I think it
Neil.
is. Do you feel that that's one of the ones you said before that they're, again, being a responsible journalist and telling the story well, some are well done. I personally feel like that one is thoughtfully, responsibly, beautifully executed. What do you think?
Yeah, Neil's a smart guy. I've talked to him about that in the past. I was working on a story about it, but it's gotten kind of sidelined. We'll see. We'll see if that picks up because I know he probably has another season coming, hopefully.
Yeah, that is, if everyone has not listened to it, I especially love season 1, but season 2 is also brilliant, and it's so crazy too because the lead guy from Incubus gets involved and his wife, and it's really fabulous. All right, you guys, I want to remind you, this book is out now. It has been out in the world for 6 days. Brenna's book baby is only 6 days old. She's a newborn. Grab your copy now. I promise you'll love it as much as I do. It's so good, and it's so heartwarming, and it's so tender, and it is funny, and I love to laugh. So I'm popping the link in the comments one more time. Leach is saying, thank you so much for answering my question. You are right. There's always someone that knows something like this has happened to someone they know. Yes, and those stories, Brenna, as you so eloquently said, deserve to be told. Leacha, thank you for your comment. Brenna, thank you for your answer. Grab your copy now, y'all. Brenna, when your next mysterious book is out, based on some of the reporting that you have done at Rolling Stone, please come back and talk with us again. It has been such a pleasure to host you, to get the inside scoop on Killing Time. Y'all, the book is out now. Grab it, and we'll have Brenna back when her next book is out.
Awesome.
Yay. All right, everybody, have a great day. I will see you at 6 p.m. special time today with Pung Shepherd and 7 p.m. with Louisa Luna. Just saying congratulations on your new release. And I will see you tonight for #Mystery Mondays, because Mondays can be murder.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thanks, Brenna.